Concerning fairgrounds relocation discussion. I went to a meeting on Tuesday last week ago, and I met with Skookum Rotary Foundation people. And I assume that this is they handed me an MOU that they had drafted in July of last year. Is this the one that you're?
No, what started this, actually, these next three items, B, C, and D, can all be covered under the same discussion.
Okay.
Because what started this discussion was listening to the KMAS broadcast, Port of Call, on the 13th of November, which brought up three subjects, actually more than three subjects, but the three subjects that I think that need discussion. They're listed here. And there was a comment about an MOU that had already been drafted, and I think you were giving credit for having drafted that MOU.
I wasn't at that meeting either.
Well, and therein lies my concerns, that there's an awful lot going on here that I, at least this part of the commission, has not been privy to.
Nor I.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's why I was bringing forward. This is the first I heard of it. Was on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that's why I needed to bring it forward to you guys. This is an MOU that was drafted way back when, that nobody can. It was between us.
I haven't seen it.
I know. You can see it now if you want it, but it was there for to look at.
Well,
It was between us and the county.
Have you seen this, Mr. Howard?
No, I don't think that's the MOU we're talking about.
Okay. Well, this is the one I got. So that's the confusion then.
I don't even want to read that.
And I didn't draft an MOU. For full disclosure purposes, we had a discussion, myself and the executive director, about what would it look like if we wanted to put something together. I proposed an interlocal agreement, so I didn't draft an MOU. I don't like MOUs.
Okay.
Because they're not statutorily based, whereas interlocal agreements are within the statute, allowing public agencies, municipalities to enter into agreements with others under certain conditions.
Right.
So I drafted a very rough interlocal, ILA, interlocal agreement, what it might look like. It was very rough. I think it's just stayed internally, staff to staff, attorney to director, just in case we ever got to that discussion point. And it's a very rough draft. It just says it's for the purposes of considering and moving forward and developing approaches to move the fairgrounds, relocate it, how would it be staffed, how would you look at that? And it would be mostly between the municipalities or public agencies. An ILA can include, but it's not binding upon, like the Skookum Rotary.
Skookum.
Skookum Rotary. So, in terms of full disclosure, that's all that was. I didn't draft an MOU, and I have not seen that MOU that you guys are talking about.
Well, I mean, we just got it. So, and what I told Skookum Rotary at the meeting when they gave it to me was that we haven't seen it.
But this is from July.
Exactly. And I got it Tuesday.
Let me try to clear up why I think that is not the MOU that we're talking about.
Okay.
This is a direct quote out of that broadcast that went out to the public over the radio.
May I ask who said it?
Director Dobson. And this is a direct quote that
Okay, I
went
wasn't
out
there,
on the
so I
radio.
don't know.
He's speaking to the committee that we'll talk to here in a minute, the committee that is going to be formed. And he says, yes, but no one knows how to get this thing started, and I'm probably the best person here to try to do that. I've already had the port's attorney write up an MOU between the county and the port. The county doesn't even know about that yet. So this was said on the 13th of November. So I don't think that's the MOU.
No, that would probably be the ILA that I drafted. And
Yeah.
some people call it an MOU, and I've had that discussion with Director Dobson. I just think an ILA is better than an MOU. You use those typically with union agreements and some of those. So that's just my personal preference. It could be an MOU. I do it with a change of title, take out the statutory RCW reference, Title 39 or Title 34.
Well, my concern here is that we've had a statement go out to the public on something fairly significant that has been said has happened, that represents this port, and it involves the relationship between this port and the county. And evidently, none of these three commissioners knew anything about it, because I sure didn't. You say you didn't, and you're speaking to an MOU that way back there, so obviously.
Which I just got last week,
So the point being that we've had an articulation in public that I think is fairly significant, that involves the county, the port, without the knowledge of the commission.
But it hasn't gone to the county.
It went out over the air.
Oh, I understand the statement went out over there, but we
But
have
we
not
haven't
sent the
officially
document
done
to the
anything,
county. We
I
haven't
haven't seen
contacted the county.
I'm-
We haven't provided it to the county, as far as I know.
I'm not addressing the MOU itself. I'm addressing the manner in which it went into the community without this commission's sanction.
Okay, so it, yeah,
Yeah.
it went out,
Well,
and,
you know, Commissioner, John Dobson's position on the fairgrounds is well known. He's pretty emphatic about what the FAA says, and I don't think that statement, that quote, is particularly damaging when you know his position already. He's just reiterating it. Isn't that correct?
No, I don't see it that way at all.
Okay.
The way I see it is that when anybody speaks for this commission, particularly on the radio or in the newspaper, it should not be an articulation of anything that has not been agreed upon by this commission.
Well, excuse me, but we've had this conversation before. That's happened a lot between commissioners. You know, you'll recall some of the challenges you and I had with another commissioner doing exactly that. We censured him. You recall that.
That doesn't make this right.
Well, but it doesn't make it any more wrong either.
well,
And it resulted in a censure before, right?
I'm
That's
sorry?
pretty serious. It resulted in a censure before, that's pretty serious.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
But I'm not talking about him. I'm not talking about John Dobson.
we're talking about the act.
Well,
well, okay, the act has happened, right?
Yeah.
You can't erase what's happened, it's happened. And it happens to be not an opinion held by,
Well, I wish he was here to defend it.
defend himself, that's right, and so I'm not gonna, to defend or dispute what happened, it happened. And,
or to apologize.
yeah, one way or the other, I'm not gonna do that, but it happened, let's move on. Let's
Is that
figure
the
out
whole-
what
Is
we're
that
gonna
the
do.
whole quote? Is that everything he said? Is it, that's not out of context,
No, that's a direct quote.
you know?
The other two items, B and C, fall into the same category. And when we talk about Fairgrounds Relocation Committee, now, he made it perfectly clear over the air again that he was forming a committee. That committee was for the purpose of, supposedly, I guess, investigating the mechanics of moving the fairgrounds off of port property and establishing them someplace else. That committee, the verbiage of what went out over the air, talked about a committee that would be intended to relocate. It would involve the county, it would involve county property, and it would involve a plan. What he was trying to get to was, I think, a plan that would be that plan that the FAA has said that they would like to see in place before any further or any long-term use of the continued use of the fairgrounds. So here we have the formation of a committee that will organize within the community how those fairgrounds are to be operated in the future, how that committee will come together, will be manned by. And again, I think it steps in a long direction in the direction of committing this commission to a pretty significant issue that this commission has not discussed.
Well, I can certainly see your point, but I also think that nothing John Dobson has done is outside of the parameters of his job. Nothing. I think he's exceptional, and I also think that everything he's done is to the betterment of this community, and a committee to investigate is different than a committee to make decisions. And so, you know, I think he has every right to set up a committee of concerned citizens to try and figure out what we should do in light of what we've been dictated to do. That's all.
Well, in speaking of the committee, what he's talking about is a meeting in, mid this month, I'm not sure when the date is, of users of the fairgrounds property, tenants that have rented that property, and it includes the Skookum Rotary Foundation, or the Skookum Rotary, the fair, Mason County Fair, the rodeo, enduro riders, all the people that have leased it. That's the meeting he's setting up, and it's to look at. In my understanding, I've talked to him about this. It was to set up what are their expectations of what they need in a facility. And I met on Tuesday, and this is my briefing to you, that on that meeting that I met with Skookum Rotary Foundation people on Tuesday.
Which I wasn't happy with.
No, I know you weren't.
Yeah.
But I told you and them that I'm not going to make a decision without the commission's authority. I can't do that. But what I told them is that what we've already known. We've been told that we need to have a plan be drafted, a plan to go forward of what to do with the property over there, and it has to do with where it's going to be to relocation, and that can include where to go, suggestions on where to go, how to fund it, how to govern it, all that sort of thing. And this was to be started up, and in this meeting with the Skookum Rotary people, they volunteered to be the group to push that forward, to shepherd the process and not have it as a government thing going forward, but a citizens community project to move forward and how to do it. And people that would, of course, be part of it would be the county has to be part of it, and we have to be part of it because we're the landlord, and we need to have the plan so that we can lease that property in the next period of time on short-term basis, individual basis. And that's what we talked about. And so I said, I'll bring that back to my commission, and I just brought it back. That's what we did. And that's where this memorandum came from, which I had never heard of or seen, so the one that's here. And it's 6 months old, but nobody's signed it. So let's take it back. Let's not even talk about that at this point because it's irrelevant.
I think it is.
Okay.
Again, my concern is that there's a relationship established here between informing the committee, assumptions informing the committee involve a relationship between the port and the county that has neither been agreed upon by the county or even discussed by the Port Commission. So again, we have something that's been thrown out into the public as a done deal that has not even been discussed by the commission. Okay? Now, the next point I think is the most serious. And that concerns the future use of the fairground. On the 14th of May this year, we sat down with the county commission as two bodies and discussed the future use of the fairgrounds. And the washout of that meeting was that the fairgrounds would be available for use in 2014 on an interim basis for short-term leases. And by the time the meeting was done, if you listen to the tape of the meeting, it was an agreed upon point that there was no end to that future use of the fairgrounds. There was a desired intent to, in one way or another, work in the direction of moving the fairgrounds off of port property, but there was nothing specific, and certainly it didn't require that the plan had to be in place in order to use the fairgrounds in 2014. Now, the first thing that really got my attention in this broadcast was this, and it's a quote from Mr. Dobson. And it says, Dick and I were talking about it, and then there's some chatter that goes on there for a few minutes. It's the story about getting everybody's attention first. And how do you do that? So let me make this statement. For 2014, the fairgrounds property is not available for rent, period. It's closed, okay? Now that's a direct contradiction of the policy that was put out by this commission and the county commission on the 14th of May. And that really concerns me, that you've got somebody representing this commission in a public statement over the radio that directly countermands a policy that was established 6 months ago.
But we've had changes since that day in May as to what our direction is from the FAA. They have come out and said that no leases will be approved unless there's a plan in place.
That's right.
I don't think so.
Well, I do.
I do too.
Show it to me in writing, because I don't believe it.
I will break it out, but I don't have it.
I don't believe
It is in writing.
It is in writing.
I've read it.
Yeah,
I think that quote from Dobson is a quote from that letter.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
the letter, you're talking about a letter that came from Washington DC,
I'm talking about a letter that came from the FAA.
from Washington DC, from the headquarters.
Well, I don't know, I don't remember the letter yet.
Okay, what that letter says, if that's what we're talking about, is that it will be difficult to approve future uses. It doesn't say
Oh,
that.
okay, I understand what you're saying now. That's an interpretation of the word difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of
You
like
know, like
whatever is means.
whatever is means, and we're to that point. What it means to me is the FAA says is they won't approve anything.
That-
And they're being diplomatic and saying it's difficult. I think that's exactly what they're saying.
I don't think so. I think the
No.
word difficult means exactly what it says. It doesn't mean
Okay.
impossible.
Well, we have a difference of opinion. But that's where we are on that, and that's where
Okay.
we're moving forward on. And we had already discussed that. We've discussed that lots of times.
We deliberately pulled that statement out of the letter that we wrote back to the Historical Society at our last meeting, because it told them that in no uncertain terms there would be no use of the fairgrounds or the Historical Society's building in 2014. And we went round and round about this and eventually pulled that out of the letter for the reason that it did not concur with the policy that we set.
The reason we
Back
pulled
in
it
May.
out is because we decided that we were going to get this letter out, and my opinion was is that we just didn't want to keep fighting about the doggone letter to move it forward. And that was one sentence that was holding it up, so we took it out. At least that was my reason.
Well, I don't see that this commission has changed the policy that it set on the 14th of May.
We didn't set a policy.
We did with the county commissioners that the fairgrounds were going to be available for use in 2014.
Well, Jay, in the interim after that, changes have happened, and it's in writing, and I don't see what beating the drum is, or beating on it is going to change. It's not. The policy is that the FAA will not approve leases from 1st of January 2014 without approved plan in place.
I want to see that in writing. I don't think it exists.
All right, we'll break it out.
Okay.
I think that's probably, any other discussion on that?
No, I think it's in writing.
Okay.
I'm convinced anyway.
I'm convinced. Okay. Staff comment.
May I say this?
Sure.
Always in John Dobson's comments, he leaves room for interim use at the fairground. And it's with the same MO, it's always been, if we have a plan in place, we believe that we can get short-term leases during 2014 for the functions that need to operate while we relocate, even if it takes 3, 4, 5 years. I really believe that. But I also believe the FAA is absolutely emphatic. And you can dance around all you want to, but send them a lease proposal and see what they say. They're going to say, no, you don't have a plan. Get a plan, we'll consider it.
And we're in this, I think we're in the formation steps of coming up with that plan.
That's what he's trying to do.
And that's what, yeah. And that's what we discussed with Skookum Rotary on Tuesday last week.
Okay, I forgive you.
Okay.
Okay. I wasn't happy about that,
I know you don't.
going there without me in jail.
Well, it'd have to be a
Yeah.
full meeting to get that.
We could announce it as a public meeting.
We could have, but we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, you opened it up to the public and anybody could attend that meeting.
Right. And this was called by Skookum Rotary to talk to us.
We could have been there without calling a special meeting, any more than we go to these WPPA meetings without calling a special meeting. We don't, as long as we don't talk with each other about court business, we can attend anybody's party.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true. Well, you're not taking action.
Right, I know. But we didn't do it, so, okay.